Hello, this presentation is designed to give you an introduction to the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015. This presentation has been developed with materials produced by the Local Government Division, the Local Government Association, and by former LGAT President Lynn Mason, and we thank them all. Because Council decisions are made through council meetings, it is vital that councillors understand the meeting procedures regulations. The regulations aim to provide a common format for meetings, to allow councillors and staff to be certain of their rights and obligations, to provide for community interaction and give confidence to the community in the decision-making process, and to allow for a clear record of decision-making. As we go through this presentation, if you would like to read more information about council meeting procedures, please go to the Local Government Division website and look at the information sheet entitled Council Meeting Procedures. There are three types of council meetings covered in the meeting regulations. They are ordinary meetings, special meetings, and council committee meetings. An ordinary meeting is the regular meeting of council, which is to be held at least once a month. After an election, the General Manager convenes the first ordinary meeting, but the Mayor convenes subsequent meetings. A special meeting is convened for a particular purpose and can be convened by the Mayor or as requested by a majority of councillors or through a resolution at a council meeting. Council committee meetings are essentially subcommittees of council that meet to perform specific functions, for example, finance committees. At any council meeting, it is important that councillors treat each other respectfully and allow for open discussion. Must remember that all councillors have only one vote and that all votes are equal, and this includes the Mayor. For a council meeting to proceed, a quorum is needed. That is, more than half the councillors elected to council need to be present. Under the regulations, the General Manager of the council is to prepare an agenda for each meeting and provide the councillors with the agenda and any associated documents. The agenda should establish what the council is going to discuss and achieve, and every item should have a recommendation to support council's decision making and enable council's decision to be clearly recorded. The General Manager must ensure that the agenda is publicly available, and it should be clear with enough detail, not only for the councillors to be able to come to meetings informed, but for the general public to be able to understand what is going to be considered by the council. An agenda for an ordinary meeting must as a minimum provide attendances and apologies, confirmation of the minutes, the date and purpose of any workshop held since the last meeting, applications for leave of absence, declarations of pecuniary interest, public question time, reports and matters for discussion. The General Manager is to arrange the agenda to ensure that planning matters are dealt with sequentially. Other business is to be dealt with in the order set out in the agenda unless the council, by absolute majority, determines otherwise. A matter which is not specifically listed on the agenda may not be discussed at a council meeting. However, the council may decide by absolute majority for an ordinary meeting or simple majority for a council committee to deal with such a matter if the General Manager reports that it was not possible to put the matter on the agenda and the reason why, that the matter is urgent, and that the advice from the qualified person, as required under Section 65 of the Local Government Act, has been provided. This slide is about motions. Council decisions are made by agreement of councillors to a proposition, referred to as a motion. If a motion is successful, it then becomes a decision of the council. A motion cannot be debated unless it is moved by a councillor and seconded by another. And in most cases, a motion will need to relate to a matter on the meeting agenda. What makes a good motion, you might ask? Well, certainly clear intention is critical. What is it that you're trying to achieve, and have you made your request understandable? Is it possible? Is it plausible? And does it have timelines attached? Most motions are formed as part of the agenda development discussion that should occur with the General Manager and the Mayor, and most will be routine business that makes up a great deal of a council meeting. But any councillor can make a motion with or without notice. If a councillor wants to move a motion without notice, the chairperson may require the councillor to provide a written copy of the motion. A motion without notice may be refused on the grounds that the chairperson thinks it's defamatory, contains offensive language, or is unlawful. A motion without notice should be the exception, as the councillor doesn't have the benefit of any advice from the council administration and will not be provided with any Section 65 advance from the General Manager. To move a motion on notice, a councillor is to give the General Manager notice of the motion in writing at least 7 days before the meeting, together with any of the supporting information and reasons for it to be included on the agenda of that meeting. I would highly recommend speaking to your General Manager in advance to obtain Section 65 advice. Regulation 22 of the Meeting Procedures Regulations deals with debate. The aim of debate is to ensure that a councillor has all the information required to make a decision, and all councillors are able to speak to a motion after it is moved and seconded. During the debate, a councillor should not digress from the subject matter of the motion and may speak to a motion only once and for not more than 5 minutes, except where granted leave by the council to speak for an additional 3 minutes. The mover of a motion has a right of reply, but is not to introduce any new material in the reply. Once a motion, that the motion be put, is passed, there is no right of reply, even if the mover has not exercised that right. The General Manager or another council employee may, on the invitation of the chairperson, provide further qualified advice on any agenda matter. The council may decide to suspend the rules of debate in this instance. Importantly, the debate should not be used for another personal agenda. It really should be focused on the motion at hand. Regulations 26, 27 and 28 deal with voting. As stated earlier, at a council meeting, each councillor, including the chairperson, who is generally the mayor, has only one vote. The chairperson is to put the motion to the vote as soon as discussion on it is finished, and it is generally put in the affirmative. A motion is to be determined by a simple majority, unless an absolute majority is required. If a councillor abstains from voting, it is to be recorded as a negative vote. Tied votes are treated as a motion being determined in the negative. Your vote is recorded in the minutes. Occasionally, voting may be conducted by secret ballot if the purpose is to select a person to represent the council on a committee or another body, but otherwise all voting is transparent for the public who may be interested in your decision making. Questions during council meetings, with or without notice, are dealt with in Regulations 29 and 30. A councillor at a meeting may ask a question without notice of the chairperson or through the chairperson of another councillor or the general manager. However, a question without notice must not be debated. When putting a question without notice, a councillor must not offer an argument or opinion, or draw any inferences or make any imputations, except as far as necessary to explain the question. A chairperson, councillor or general manager who is asked a question without notice may decline to answer. Furthermore, a chairperson may refuse to accept a question if it does not relate to the activities of the council. Questions without notice and the answer do not need to be recorded in the minutes of a meeting, and a chairperson may require a councillor to put the question without notice in writing. Regulation 30 deals with questions on notice. A councillor may give 7 days written notice of an intention to ask a question at the next ordinary council meeting or council committee. An answer to a question on notice must be in writing.